I want to welcome everybody and hope that you enjoy this presentation. Today, we've got a lot of exciting things to share. Our agenda is split up into four components: welcome and introduction, unlocking the power of RETScreen. Stephen's going to share that with us. Using measurement and verification, Amir's going to be talking about that, and a call of action. We're hoping that you are able to take what we share today and actually apply it. So I'm going to start the welcome with a case study. We want to make this as real and tangible for you as we can. Stephen is going to be talking about RETScreen. He's an expert in RETScreen. I continue to learn from him on what he's been done and has achieved. Amir's, what I like about Amir is he doesn't look at the surface. He wants to understand what the data is telling and peel the onion back so he can actually see what are the root cause issues. And then at the end, we're going to come together as a team. We've got a lot of content in this presentation, and we don't want you to worry about missing anything. So we are going to make the recording available for you, and as well as the slides. There is a free RETScreen license for those that participate in this webinar as well, courtesy of RETScreen. So first, I'd like to have a big thank you to RETScreen for sponsoring this and making this available for us. RETScreen has been supporting the industry for years. And what I like about working with RETScreen is that they actually listen to what improvement opportunities are available for us. And they look to make continuous improvement, and they support it with webinars like this one, videos, toolbox, etc. So I really do appreciate the leadership and the cooperative effort that they've helped organizations like us and others really understand right, use right, and buy right with the information that RETScreen can unleash and the information, the insights they provide. There's a lot of supporting information from RETScreen through the use of videos, tools, and other support. I urge you to go onto their website, the link is below, and take advantage of all this information. It's freely available and fully supported. So hats off to Enercan for their support and to the RETScreen team. I'd also like to give a specific shout out to the Efficiency Valuation Organization, EVO. This organization has been around for over 25 years, consisting of volunteers largely. They do a really great job in supporting IPMBP, which is International Protocol Measurement Verification Protocol. It is a great way of ensuring that the energy efficiency results are verified to an international standard. It kills all the fake news that we often hear too much about. And it's a great response. In Canada, we have Bill C-59, which is aimed at preventing greenwashing. And it requires that we use an international standard when we make green claims. And IPMBP meets that requirement. So hats off to EVO for supporting IPMBP and continually to develop it. It's a very clear and positive approach to deal with measurement and verification. The link is below. I particularly like the graphic on the right-hand side. This was a LinkedIn post from Denis. He's the executive director of EVO. And it shows the international flavor of this standard and how we can take a project through the IPMVP requirements and send it anywhere in the world. They'll come up with the same results. This is very similar to RETScreen in terms of international support. I think RETScreen is enjoyed by 130 different languages. It's having these international standards and international tools really help make what we're doing a lot more credible.
Scott, to your point, we have a couple people here from Sydney, Australia, and Morocco this morning, so which might not be this morning in Morocco, or I'm not sure what time it is in Australia. So welcome, folks, from across the waters.
Yeah, that's a great point, Stephen. I understand we have 260 people registered, and again, this international flavor. I think we all have huge challenges, regardless where we're from, in meeting the energy requirements of the future, particularly with AI, electrification, EV. So we need we need new supply, obviously, but we also need to use what we have smartly. And I think energy efficiency is the way that we need to start with. So great. I'm glad everybody's here to be part of what we're sharing and take something away. So I'm going to go through the welcome objectives and some introductions very quickly. Our learning objectives, we've always wanted to bring content to these webinars. We don't want talking heads. We want heads who talk and be able to share real value in what we've done. I'm going to lead off with a case study that we've done with 28 commercial offices. This was for a 4-year project. Then we're going to have Stephen talking about RETScreen and really releasing all of its, or a good portion of its capabilities. And then Amir is going to jump in with some specific projects. We don't want to talk about generalities. We want to be very specific. And then we'll end up with a call to action, what you can do, and hopefully give you enough confidence and information that you can take away and actually take advantage of what is available. So let me start out with No Energy. No Energy has been around for 4 decades, doing education, webinars, workshop. More importantly, analytics. If you've got a challenge, Stephen is first up to help trying to work through that challenge, understand what the data. He's famous for saying, let the data speak to you. And that I've taken to heart, because a lot of times people will throw numbers at you, but without actually stepping back and listening and trying to understand what that data is really telling. And you need the tools like what RETScreen can provide so that you can actually see that insights and move forward. A little bit about energy at work. We do a number of things, EWRB reporting, existing building commissioning, certifications, but our real claim to fame is our energy management action plan. And this is where we sit down with organizations to understand what their objectives are and working with them to achieve those objectives. So together, No Energy, Energy at Work, and the others that we work with, it's really to come together and come up with sustainable solutions. We want to make a difference in this world. And so our objective is to come up with better but sustainable results so that we can actually move forward in meeting future challenges. So let's start with the first poll. Stephen, I'm going to turn that over to you.
Folks should see it. Yeah, people are seeing it on the screen. Their numbers.
Perfect.
Numbers are coming in. I'm just going to wait until it comes up there a little bit. Where right now the service providers are in the lead, and we're by about 50%. But we'll see. So there's a lot of service providers out there, and I mean, it was funny when I made the comment about the 2 people in the chat. It's like we had about 30 people said hello from India, from France, and Dubai, Kenya, Moncton, New Brunswick, Bucharest. So yeah, it really is an international group this morning.
Oh, that's perfect.
So it looks like we've got a pretty good. I'm just waiting for. We have about 105 people online right now. About 75 of you have responded to the poll. So I'm going to end the poll here, and I will show the results. There you go, Scott. You should be able to see who's online.
Can. That's great. Yeah, no, this is terrific. It's nice to know who we're speaking with. And then, so with a large portion of service providers, I think you'll enjoy Stephen's presentation on the content of RETScreen. End-use customers, I'm always glad to see. At the end of the day, we need the end-use customers to participate. And of course, government and utility representatives, you can become the catalyst of helping bring the end-use customer, the service provider together with your programs and your regulations and directives. We need your leadership for sure. Others, right. I'm glad that you're here as well, and we'll carry on. Thank you. Whoops. So I'm going to lead off with a specific case study. This is 28 commercial offices and what they did between 2017 to 2020. This was a utility program that promoted energy efficiency. There was 11 different property management companies. The reason I draw attention to that is every property management company looks at the world differently, and it's up to us as service providers to respond to what they need versus trying to dictate what we need or what a utility program requires. Of those 11 property management companies, we had 11 enrolled in our energy management action plan. 28 were eligible to participate in this particular program. This was a city Toronto Hydro program. We had a very large electricity baseline. The focus was on electricity reduction. Jump forward, the results came out at 16 million kilowatt hours. We had an original target of 5%. We were able to double that with 11%. And the bottom line was RETScreen was used for the measurement of verification plan that was required because we had to report savings annually and have those savings approved. So the requirements and challenges for us, the incentive program requirements were actually fairly straightforward. It required an energy management action plan, which worked very well for us because that's what we do. The measurement and verification plan was very explicit. It had to be annually updated and it had to be IPMVP compliant. IPMVP proved to be our savior, and I'll talk more about that. And then there was an opportunity register, which was basically a list of measures that we're going to target for electrical savings. We ended up looking at natural gas and water savings as well. They weren't reported. So our challenges. The program itself was quite practical and we were able to utilize it. What we did notice that customers are so busy with everything that they have to deal with that to get into the details was challenging. The other challenge we had was how do you maintain the momentum? I think probably this has been a challenge for other people when you're trying to achieve energy efficiency reductions over time. How do you make it exciting? I had a presentation yesterday, and the one person said, how do we make energy efficiency sexy, that people want to participate? And I think how we do that and how we did it was by using measurement and verification to demonstrate that the results were real, tangible, and getting management and operations excited about what we're doing and what they were doing, I think is so critical. And then March 16th hit the world. We had what they call a black swan. This is an unexpected event that wasn't desirable by any means. And of course, that was COVID. We were building on momentum. We were getting results. We were all excited. Things were going extremely well for the past 3 years. And then what are we going to do? Now what? That was our challenge. That was our biggest challenge. So what started off as a barrier became an opportunity for us. If anybody's read the last lecture by Randy Posh, he says brick walls are made to stop others. So I give my hat off to Amir, who looked at what was happening, looked at the data, and he made a very convincing argument that the energy efficiency measures that were installed and were being achieved didn't stop in March. They continued on. When you install an energy efficiency measure, you verify it's real, it does continue and it's maintained. So this conversation took several months to convince the powers that be that this was the case, that these energy efficiency measures actually continued and that we should be able to report them as part of the program. And thanks to EVO's IPMVP, they published a guideline on non-routine events and non-routine adjustments. We were able to make the case to verify all 28 submissions and get those savings recognized for the energy efficiency that they actually achieved. The catch to all this, we had 6 weeks to complete 28 project submissions for 2020. So from February, we had 28 projects that we had to go through the verification process and make the submissions to the utility to get the benefits. And this is where RETScreen really came to our rescue. They made it practical and the task possible to get this completed in the time that we had. So why RETScreen? Why not use another tool? Well, I want to talk a little bit about it. We see a lot of people using Excel. In fact, we looked at a project where we looked at over 30 projects that were using Excel. And certainly Excel has its advantages, and you can certainly use it for measurement and verification. I don't want anybody to walk away thinking that we're only promoting RETScreen. we're promoting measurement and verification, and just want to talk about the tools that we find work for us. So we do use Excel. We found it's certainly it's got these are the attributes to it, and why you're going to make the presentation is going to be available. You can go through it and see for yourself. Clearly, most people have Excel. Most people are comfortable with using Excel. We did have one energy service company come to us and want us to do verification, measurement and verification for their projects. They were asked by their client. They wanted us, they had a budget of about $1,500, and they wanted us to look at use option B, which is IPMVP, but they gave us 500 Excel files, and it just became impractical for us to do measurement and verification using Excel for 50 Excel files. So we had to turn them down. We tried to use option C, and then option C, I think, would have been doable, but that wasn't what they wanted to use. So we had to turn them down. So although Excel has its advantages, it does have its limitations as well. And I think that's largely because Excel can be customized by the author, and not every author looks at the Excel file the same way. Now we go to RETScreen, and this is where we get greater consistency. There's built-in QA and QC codes. There's automatic IPMVP compliance. We just find that there's greater flexibility. We've got a number of people on the team. All of us have RETScreen licenses. We share files back and forth to do our analytics and to compare. We come across some hiccups that we need to resolve. So this is where having a consistent platform that looks at the data the same way, and where we have a situation, we've even flipped a RETScreen file to you, Stephen.
Right.
And that's proved to be quite effective in communicating on a particular project.
Yeah, so one of the things I can mention too is you talked about 500 buildings and trying to do M&V on 500 different files. If those were option C files you're trying to do, in the portfolio tool in RETScreen, you could bring all those files into your portfolio, and then you could use the managed portfolio to do regressions, Q-sums, M&V charts as a first pass, getting all the weather data for the sites and everything from one dialog in the portfolio tool. So RETScreen does allow you to manage large groups of buildings and do M&V almost en masse.
Yeah, perfect. And I know you're going to be talking a lot more about that, so I'm not going to get into that. I don't want to steal any of your thunder, but I do want to conclude by talking about RETScreen versus Excel or any other tool for measurement and verification. And I want to be clear that we use both. I don't want you to think that we're restricted to using RETScreen. We do use Excel, and it really depends on the project, the client situation. And I think this is why it's important to have a number of tools in your toolbox to do energy management. Why we prefer RETScreen is because, as I mentioned, the files are transferable. It gives us greater confidence when we share information. Determining the building's balance point is easier in RETScreen than working with Excel. As Stephen mentioned, working on multiple properties and doing analytics, etc., RETScreen has been very helpful for us. And Stephen's going to go into all the additional features, or not all of them, but he's certainly going to provide insight into some of the other features. RETScreen covers a great wealth of opportunities. It's really a toolbox rather than a software package. And that's what has made RETScreen our tool of choice. So we've been having a license for a number of years, using it on a number of projects, and just find it's convenient for us. So I wanted to share that one case study with you a little bit more. This was a presentation we provided to BOMA, the national conference a couple of years ago. And we looked at 30 specific properties and what worked and what didn't work and why. And what really came out was that in the collaboration between people, process, and products, and really how important that is, and certainly leading with people. But you needed the process, and you need products like measurement verification, RETScreen, et cetera, to bring all this information together so that the right person has the right information at the right time. And I want to illustrate that with that project that we spoke about, getting the results from 2017 to 2020, significant economic benefit, but also looking at the avoided electricity was incredible. This is the electricity that customers did not have to purchase, and obviously Toronto Hydro did not have to supply, which is the real key behind energy efficiency. So one of the tricks that we use, and it's readily available within RETScreen, is the Q-sum analysis. We set up our baseline on the left-hand side at the top. You see where we established a baseline. This was in 2017. Year one, fairly typical. People are getting oriented, organized, etc. And then in year two, we started to see a reduction. And this was a direct result of energy efficiency savings, and we were able to use measurement verification to demonstrate to the satisfaction of Toronto Hydro to receive the incentive. That continued on into year three when we hit the black swan, of course, the COVID March, and the drop was a result of occupancy and some energy efficiency. Obviously, we couldn't quantify that. So this is where we use the non-routine event and non-routine adjustment to separate what was energy efficiency and what was due to occupancy. And this is the argument or the proof that we provided the utility to get the incentive. What was exciting about this and the other projects is the sustainability of energy efficiency. A lot of people think that it goes away, but with that energy management plan and that direction, we've been able to demonstrate that we've been able to sustain the savings. And again, we've used RETScreen to help make that possible. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our resident RETScreen expert, Stephen Dixon from No Energy, to help share other features that RETScreen offers. So Stephen, I'll turn it over to you and look forward to hearing what you have to share.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. That's great. What I'm going to do here this morning is to start out with the virtual energy analyzer, which is a neat feature in RETScreen, where you can access complete building in a few clicks. I'm going to show you how you would work through, and in fact, I'm going to feature the idea of doing an energy audit, doing maybe ASHRAE type energy audits, work through to actually doing M&V. And then Amir is going to, as Scott said, dig down into the detail of M&V and show you how RETScreen can really show what's going on. So I want to show it as a complete project tool from going from A to Z on a particular project. My focus will ultimately be all the steps in between here. I'm not going to show you everything about RETScreen, sorry, Scott, but you can't do that in half an hour. What I will say though is that there are many aspects to RETScreen, and many of them you can look at via the RETScreen's YouTube channel. Excellent tool. We'll provide some email addresses afterwards, so there will be certainly access to us beyond this session. But again, as my friends at RETScreen will say, not everybody knows everything about RETScreen. So there's even parts that I've never used, right? It's been put together by many, many people over the years. So as I get going here, what I'd like to do is just to get an idea of what people's experience is with the RETScreen. So I'm going to launch another poll here. You can go ahead and respond to that one now. I just like to get some sense on what people's experience is, how they're using it. So we're seeing some numbers come up here. This is great. Thanks, folks.
Just one question, Stephen, that was asked: is this a presentation going to be available? And the answer is yes.
Yeah.
We have everybody's email. We'll make sure that the presentations is made available for you, as well as the recording.
So Scott, there's also a question in there. When you were talking about savings over 4 years, somebody wanted a qualification for that. Maybe you can have a look at that question and give an answer there. So I think we're doing good. Okay, so we're getting up to where we were before in terms of the participation rate in the polls. So I think that's pretty representative. So I'm going to go ahead and end the poll here, and I'm going to share the results. So you can see that. So some of you are just starting, which is great. A few of you have just recently heard about the tool. The majority of you, well, not the majority, but at least the single greatest category here, if you downloaded and installed the free version, which is wonderful because you can use many of the features, not all of them, but many of the features in the free version. We have some licensed users online, about 18%, and then licensed and a frequent user, and then consider myself an advanced user. Looking at the list, I can probably guess who you are, so that's great. So that's good. So we do have some things to learn here. So I think I really like the fact that many of you just downloaded and installed it. So I'm going to show you how you can begin with this tool. Say you wanted to do an energy audit. So you wanted to take a project from beginning to end. I'm going to show you how to do that, and then Amir is going to show you how you can M&V that project. So that's wonderful, folks. Thanks very much for sharing there. So I'm going to get rolling here. It is a complete toolbox, and I didn't coin that phrase. Somebody said that to me a little while ago. Person had been one of our webinars and they started to explore the tool. He said, everything's here. It's all here. And it can be very daunting when you look at it. So I'm not going to dive in and play with the different pieces, but it is an all-in-one toolbox, and it's growing as time goes on. Like I said before about being able to do, like if you've got 30 buildings and you've got data for 30 buildings in spreadsheet, you could pull those into RETScreen, into the portfolio tool. You could actually do an en masse M&V, meaning you could do regression and Q-sums based on weather data and M&V charts. Then you can go in and look at each one and tweak it, right? So it really eliminates a lot of the grunt work that you might have to do otherwise. So it's a good tool from that point of view. You talked about international audience today, Scott. Well, RETScreen actually has been contributed to by a fairly international audience, obviously led by Natural Resources Canada, CanMed Energy, and many other entities here in Canada, the Independent Electricity System Operator, and those abroad. NASA, obviously a strong contributor to the weather database that's used, and other agencies as well. And probably, I probably would be wrong when I give you the number, but I'm probably one of about 300 people, and Scott is too, who have contributed to the development of RETScreen over the years. So they've worked with many, many different people. They write the software, they manage the software, but they take input from others. And somebody once said recently to me, he said, you're only as great as those people around you. And I think RETScreen really exemplifies that idea. To build a really good piece of software, you need to have lots of input from other experts. And that's what RETScreen's development model is. The result then today, and I'm sure it's going to evolve into the future, is a pretty rich tool set. I'm going to start with the virtual energy analyzer. RETScreen has benchmarking tools. Then it has feasibility analysis tools and performance analysis. And it's really in this performance analysis where M&V is done. This is where performance is energy compared to what's driving it. And ultimately, things like regression are how we quantify those things mathematically. And so within the performance analysis module, we have strong M&V tools for option C in IPMBP. There's actually a great video of on RETScreen's YouTube channel of doing M&V option A, B, C, and D using RETScreen. Now, in some cases, I'd say that I would be probably a little cautious of using it, say, for option D, but definitely for option A and B. And I think its strength really is option C when it comes to M&V. And then there's a portfolio piece. You can deal with one building, but what happens if you have 50 or 100 buildings? What if you're a consultant that has 30 or 40 different clients? Well, you can build your portfolio of all your clients' buildings, and you can then subdivide those according to different types and different things. So you have a way that becomes a benchmarking database as well, your own benchmarking database of your own client database. So, or your client collection. So RETScreen has all the tools to be able to do those things. It can deal with many, many different project types. I often say, think of a project, you can probably figure out a way to do it in RETScreen. And there are certain things I wouldn't do. So with any tool, right, there's always things that you don't want to try to do with it. You've got to understand the limitations of your tool. If you wonder about, well, can RETScreen do this? You can always go and have a look at the videos, but you can send me an email. Could you do this in RETScreen? I'm more than happy to tell you. And I may come back to you and say, hey, I don't know. I need to consult with somebody. Or I may say, no, I probably wouldn't do it that way. Or I'm going to say, yes, but do it this way. So there's, obviously starting off with RETScreen on a project, you really have to understand its capabilities and how to apply them properly. There's lots of internal data in RETScreen, product and cost and climate and weather. And we distinguish in RETScreen between climate and weather data. Climate is the long-term averages, right? Not necessarily what it is tomorrow, the next day, or yesterday. Weather is what it is tomorrow, the next day, yesterday, the day before, on a daily basis, and even on an hourly basis. Here it mentions that RETScreen is connected to NASA's sort of cloud satellite-derived meteorological data. But today, there's also connections to Environment Canada electronically, right? Environment Canada's databases, and also Copernicus, which is a European weather database as well. So there's lots of diversity in the weather data coming into RETScreen as well. Whatever you choose, I know some people like the Environment Canada data better than NASA. You now have the capability of bringing that in automatically to your projects. Other things, benchmarking data, resource maps. I mean, there's just so much here. And again, if you ask me how the hydrology data works, I'm going to say that's not my area of expertise, but I know who to connect you to. So very broad resources. Now, For those that are starting and just downloaded, installed the free version or none, or just recently heard about it, one of the things that I, I think is really cool in RETScreen is there's lots of ways to get you started. So when you open it up, there's a thing called the case studies and templates. And case studies and templates are basically a set of projects, right? Sometimes as a case study, there were real projects and we have a solution in RETScreen. So you can actually open up the solution in RETScreen. Sometimes they're a template, which is a hypothetical project to demonstrate some feature or approach in RETScreen. So on the right, I'm showing a template. And they're set up as teaching tools. In a sense, they give you an assignment. They give you a base case, a proposed case, the way it was, the way you want it to be, and then to look for the answer, and you can open up the answer. The same thing with the case studies. They're set up as teaching assignments. So if you're a teacher out there, you're a trainer, I do a lot of that. These are set up to be very easy for you to use, to show other people, lead other people through learning to use RETScreen, but they're also good self-study tools as well. When it comes to actually using the software, I mean, I mentioned a few minutes ago about the YouTube channel, RETScreen's YouTube channel. Well, you don't have to actually go and you can go and navigate that directly on YouTube and go through all the different videos. But if you're using the software and you get stuck on, you say, I wonder how, Scott or Amir would use this tool. If you click on the e-learning option within the software, it actually takes you directly to a video that's relevant to the section of the software you're in this case, pumps. You also have the ability to click throughout the software on the labels, and it will bring up textual help internal to the software. So obviously, it's going to make it very easy as you're going through this the first time to say, how can I do this? You can dabble with it, right? And those who just downloaded it, dabble with it a little bit, have a look at it, and take advantage of the license that you'll get for the full version, the free license for a limited time as a result of this webinar. That allows you to unleash all of its power. So how will we use these tools? What I'm going to do in the next little, maybe 20 minutes is to walk us through the idea of developing a project starting with a pre-feasibility analysis. And then we'll jump into feasibility. And the difference between these two is that, let's just see if it makes sense to do this, in broad strokes. Oh, it does? Let's dig down and actually get the details from our particular project, our building, whatever it might be. And let's build a business case for that, right? Oh, once we've spent the money to implement the project, we better start to track and monitor this thing, right? And eventually, as Amir will show us, how to measure and verify those savings, right? So basically going through from a notion, an idea, very broad concept, all the way through to a project or a building or whatever it might be that's being measured and verified. Now, this is the key point in this session because I think I get this question a lot. Well, can you use RETScreen to do an ASHRAE audit? Yes, okay, but the answer isn't singular, right? If you take a look at the ASHRAE audit procedures guideline, it talks about 4 different types of audits: a preliminary energy assessment, a level 1 audit, level 2, level 3. Well, RETScreen actually has the capability to support many of these. So if you were doing a preliminary energy analysis, I'm going to let you go and find out what's involved in that, right? And that's documented. You can find it on the web in a few places, but if you want to buy the standard that's available, the technical guideline from ASHRAE, that's linked at the bottom. But just Google it, you'll find it. And basically, too much to put on one slide, but a preliminary energy use analysis can be supported by RETScreen's benchmarking and virtual energy analyzer features. I'm going to get into the VEA or the virtual energy analyzer in a minute. Now, next level of detail, a walkthrough analysis, right? Benchmarking, we could start with the VEA, virtual energy analyzer archetype, right? So an archetypical building, right? Which is embedded in RETScreen. And then we can do some what we call level 1 feasibility on that, right? Moving forward from that, right? We've got a level 2 audit, which is an energy survey and engineering analysis. So there's no doubt that in my mind, the performance analysis, which can be used in M&V, it can also be used to do performance analysis on the historical data. Understand how the building got to today. If somebody says to me, what can we do in this building? I need to see how the building has traversed the last few years and got to the point it is. What's performance doing? Is its performance getting worse, performance getting better, or is it kind of holding the line? And I can benchmark the building from that point of view as well. Then if I want to dig down and have a look at meter data and start to build a real complete picture of how energy is used in the building, we can do that. So, everything you need to do in terms of pie charts and all those things, and then ultimately the feasibility of different measures, both energy efficiency, EE, and renewable. And we've got level 1 and level 2. So in RETScreen, there's many places where the level 1 is a simple approach, level 2 is a more complex. It's not always that, but there's usually one or two, there's more than one level, and one is more detailed than the other one. So as we're in level 1, right, ASHRAE audit, we can use level 1 analysis in RETScreen, or maybe we jump to level 2 audit and we use the more detailed models, the level 2 options in RETScreen. Finally, level 3. Little caution advised here, detailed analysis of capital intensive modifications, right? So if we're going to be really digging down and spending a lot of money to do a capital project, there are places where some of the feasibility models I think would be applicable. In some cases, I would say we need to use other tools. In some cases, you may be required to use other tools for hourly simulations, because RETScreen does not do an hourly simulation. So a little caution, but in some cases, especially on the renewable side, because these are the models that have been, time tested for years and years in RETScreen. They're quite good, and they would probably be adequate. I was very surprised that even the landfill landfill gas model is a landfill gas model in RETScreen, where you dump garbage or trash into a landfill for many years, and you put the amount of gas or trash you put in over the years, and it generates a landfill gas emission curve, like how much gas is available. And I've actually, interestingly enough, had a few people say, yeah, it comes pretty close to what actually occurs. So some good models. Now, the other thing I'll mention here is throughout all of these, no matter whether you're in the PEA all the way through to level 3, you're going to have financial and emissions analysis available for whatever opportunities and whatever consumptions you're looking at. As we go through this, I'm going to use this little thing at the top right-hand corner just to highlight where we are in that overall process of using our tools. So, pre-feasibility. Here's where we can start with the virtual energy analyzer, right? We can scale the building to our actual building, and I'll give you a view of the analyzer and the scaling tool in a minute. We can do benchmarking. We can set base case, proposed case, and set targets for reduction and what that would save, right? We can select within the archetypes, which are in the virtual energy analyzer. We can select or deselect certain projects to include. So you're given a sort of a archetypical building, but you can go through and tailor it to your own situation to some extent, right? And then what that allows you to do is arrive at a pre-feasibility assessment of what opportunities might exist. You can do a financial analysis and emission analysis here. So the archetypes are really full-blown models in RETScreen. The word archetype really means a very typical thing, right? So the archetype has, benchmarking information in it, but it also has then detailed information about the building. It can be by measure, or it can be by whole facility, and for many, many different facility types. I'm not sure, I can't remember now how many facility types exist in the archetypes. It's in the hundreds though, for sure. And each one has a description of the base case and the proposed case. So what is this archetype designed to represent? Now, the scaling function, this is where you can take a predefined building, maybe like the one on the left here, and you can scale it to your own building. So maybe the archetype was 4,500 square meters, your building is 6,800, you can scale that. You can also scale the costs for the measures and the fuel consumption, and they aren't necessarily linear scaling. So in this, in this case, it shows that it's a linear scaling because we haven't entered a scaling exponent, but it could be a nonlinear scaling, and we can add that in there. So you've got some flexibility to actually scale the costs, the consumptions, and the emissions as well. And at that point, you get sort of essentially a user-defined building. Once you've scaled it, you can save that as a user-defined building, you can make it static, or you can basically go back and even tweak it a bit more, changing some of the measures that are in the building. So the measures that are in the building are typically listed on what we call the include screen, or include or exclude. So here's the building completely decomposed in all of its different bits and pieces, right? And then we can then select measures or deselect measures depending on whether these measures fit in our building or not. Here's an archetype for a community center. Here's one for a curling club. There are two types of archetypes in RETScreen. There are sort of low carbon archetypes, typically 80–90% carbon reduction. And those are smart archetypes because they do a lot more, when you open them up, depending on where you are and what the weather is, they actually do a lot more logic to actually determine what the building should look like in the proposed case. How do you electrify the building? How do you apply renewables and that type of thing? Whereas the energy reduction archetypes simply are a kind of a model of a building, so they're not as smart as the low carbon archetypes, and they typically target a 40% reduction in energy in those archetypes. So if you've got the downloaded free version, have a look. You can go and have a look at these things. And there's a view of the screen which shows you the emission reductions. In this particular case, it's a 89.9% emission reductions. And it is very sensitive to where you are in the world, the fuels that you're using. So factors exist for the world over, which many of the people out there. So have a look at the, I'm sure your country in many cases is represented, so you don't have to go dig those factors out. Those are in there, and those are constantly upgraded or updated by RETScreen. So moving on to feasibility. So this is where we're going to dig down, and this might be where we do a level 1 or a level 2 audit, ASHRAE designated. So we're going to do a physical walkthrough audit. We could take that archetype building, the one that we have over here on the left, and we could tweak it. We could modify it to match our building, right? We use it to begin with to say, hey, look, there's opportunity here, but now we're going to go and make it look more like our building. Or we can start from scratch and build our own building. What I often suggest people do is that they use the archetype to guide them in how to build the building if they've not done this many times before, and then eventually build their own building. Over time, you'll develop the ability to actually enter a building relatively quickly. There are some tricks. This is not a simulation like eQuest or CanQuest or Trace or any of those things. It takes a different approach. It's an energy accounting model. It accounts for where all the energy is going, right? Which is a little bit different from a simulation. So we've had lots of courses online too that can talk about how to apply RETScreen. But if you've used other tools, just be aware that when you start to use this one, you've got to think a little bit differently about how you're using your modeling tools. You can determine the savings. You can add the costs. This is a view of the cost database in RETScreen, right? And so in many cases, you don't have to go out there and get quotes and estimates from suppliers or contractors. You could use the database to do a first pass on the project cost. And then once hey, this looks good, we're going to tweak those numbers. So the nice thing about the way we do feasibility in RETScreen, you can do sort of a basic approach, kind of a placeholder in your analysis, and then you can upgrade it. When things start to look good, yeah, you can upgrade that and add more detail or less detail in a particular area. So RETScreen is pretty flexible when it comes to doing that. You can usually get launched pretty quickly on a building with a few basic pieces to the structure and then build out the detail as time goes on. Doing a model review. I put an emphasis on this one. Lately, I've seen a lot of people use RETScreen and they didn't have someone have a look at it, right? Just explain it to somebody else, or maybe just submit it to somebody who's used RETScreen a bit more. It's always good to do a model review. This is done in engineering, it's done in software. Code reviews are big. That's where I kind of thought of the term, right? I was watching a show the other day and talking about code reviews on software. Having another set of eyes, it really makes a difference. You can catch things. There's just some inadvertent things you can do. So get them all in review, because I think that's going to improve the quality of what you're doing immensely. Just to take a look at a few of the different types of models in RETScreen. In feasibility, we've got the lighting model, right, which can take into account different types of lamps. It's got the cost and the product databases in there. So if you don't know the characteristics of your product, its specifications, they may be in the database. Same thing with the costs. The costs are there as well. You can do ventilation systems. This is what we call method 1, which is actually the more complex ventilation system. If you're interested in how to apply RETScreen effectively to more complex ventilation systems, have a look at the YouTube channel. There are some videos on there. Michelle Perron and myself have done those. We applied to variable volume system, constant volume, makeup air systems, because there are a few tricks to using it properly. It works, but you got to make sure you use the tool, as any tool, properly. Not moving on. There we go. Building envelope model. This is one I actually use a lot, and it can be used in a simple way. You can go in there and just rough the building in, almost like sketch a building in, and then you can go in there and enhance the values that you have there. The neat thing about the whole model in RETScreen, which is based to a large extent around the building envelope model, is that for those of you that may be asked to determine the thermal energy demand intensity of your building, otherwise known as TEDI, RETScreen does that nicely, because TEDI is defined as the thermal requirement of the building minus the internal heat gains divided by the floor area. Well, where are the internal heat gains from? Well, interestingly enough, in RETScreen, I'm just going to go back to lighting here, RETScreen has the ability for you to quantify the internal heat gains, or the heating cooling impact. So that feature makes it really easy for RETScreen to calculate TEDI for those of you that have to do a TEDI calculation. So A very capable tool developed by the folks back in the day at Danner Modal Engineering, green building folks here in Canada. It's a neat tool. It works quite well, and it's quick to use. Now you can use it in great level detail, but it works very well rapidly as well. So when you're finished your feasibility analysis, then you can basically lay everything out. So this is your refined building. You get some nice graphs to include in your report, right? And you can see the simple payback of each of your measures on this screen. And if you dig deeper, then you can start to develop the business case, which requires you to do maybe more sophisticated financial analysis, looking at things like NPV, IRR. What's featured on the right-hand side here is a risk and sensitivity tool. Now, that's a pretty powerful tool, right? I'm not going to dig more into it, but if you're doing large capital projects, doing risk and sensitivity analysis on the parameters that impact that project is going to be really, really critical. Now, what if RETScreen can't do the technical analysis for your project? How can you use this risk and sensitivity tool? Well, you can go in and define a user-defined project. Remember, user-defined project in RETScreen. You can put your parameters into the user-defined screen, how much energy, what the cost is, and everything else, what RETScreen would normally calculate, but it can't in this case. You put the user-defined project in, then you can run the risk and sensitivity tool set on your user-defined project. So even if you don't use RETScreen for those other aspects, for doing the technical calculations, you can use it to do the financial calculations. Very powerful in that sense, but it does work together seamlessly as a tool. You have your detailed financial analysis here, calculating NPV, IRR, modified internal rate of return. You can do debt financing, do income tax analysis. Don't ask me about income tax. I'm not a tax person, but there is a feature in there which allows you to take into account income tax accommodations, right, for energy projects. Get some nice graphs. What's interesting, I see this graph here, the cash flow graph, the cumulative cash flow graph, that actually caused the plant manager to do a lighting retrofit because he didn't realize how much cash a lighting retrofit project would free up. It had a 6-month simple payback, but he didn't do it. Until he saw that graph, he says, why aren't we doing this project? Well, because you didn't understand how much cash this project would free up. RETScreen's graph allowed him to see that. The project went ahead. Sometimes it's really wonderful, the little things that cause people to do things, and having a tool set that's so rich, which, will appeal to many different points of view, I think is valuable as well.
Yeah, Stephen, if I could jump in with a comment on that. I've found that so often that maintaining the momentum on a project, it requires that you get the right information to the right person at the right time. And I think your point on the visibility helps make that so much more realistic and tangible for the different viewpoints that you have to bring into the team. So it's a great point. And again, making it visual and real for people, that's the people process products that comes through over and over and over again. So thanks for that.
Yeah, even something as simple, a little graph in the bottom right-hand corner here, the equivalence between the carbon reduction in this project, 17%, and what that might mean to people in everyday life. So RETScreen has those visualization tools. It also has a whole raft of different types of reports, right? This is the custom feasibility report that was constructed within the custom dashboard tools in RETScreen. You can basically take all those different views that are in different places in the software and bring them together in a custom dashboard, both visually and textually. Now, one thing that's not in RETScreen, I'd like to see there, maybe one day it'll be there. I like to use the one-page proposal. If you've never seen a one-page proposal, just Google it. There's a book around it. I didn't write the book, but it's a neat way to present all in one place, on one page, a very simple, succinct argument for doing a project, right? So it's got a very catchy title in this case, Let's Clear the Air, Addressing Fume Ventilation Control Needs of University of Yorktown. But what's that got to do with energy? Well, it does have something to do with energy. You can have a look at this when you review the slides afterwards, but think about using a one-page proposal. And if my friend David from Toronto Hydro is here, David, this was the one that you developed in one of the training activities. So thank you, David Elstrom from Toronto Hydro, for showing us how to use a one-page proposal. All right.
Stephen, if I could jump in there. We just completed a project. It was a lighting project, quite complicated for a large commercial office. And the response I got back from our technical study, we had all the graphs and numbers and backup. And the response I got back was, Scott, can you just make this a one-page We're getting questions from the asset team in New York City that wants to understand all the numbers, but they have to make it very clear and straightforward to them. So, this one pager I think is really important. I think too often as a technical team, we think by providing more graphs and more numbers, we're adding to the conversation, but in some ways, we're actually subtracting from the conversation. So great point you're making.
Yeah, there's a question here about interested in whether RETScreen could replace ESPN for both government and regulated communities. I don't want to comment on whether it could replace it, but RETScreen does interface very nicely with ESPN. It'll bring a lot of the data over. I often tell people use both of these tools and have a bit of redundancy or diversity in your tool set. So RETScreen does interface very nicely from that point of view. Okay, so tracking and reporting. Maybe we just need some simple graphs with some visuals in them that help people to understand how we're doing on this project, right? Or maybe we need to get into more detail. We have things called bulletins in RETScreen, which can be used. These were developed from the point of view of maybe doing a recommissioning and wanting to report on a regular basis. So bulletins, which is another form of more of a repeated report. Right? Sometimes they can be simple like this. Sometimes they can be a lot more complex. These are all custom dashboards that were created. You don't have to go with this one. You can create your own one. There's example ones in the tools. You can create your own one, make it something that's custom to your situation. Now, getting towards the M&V, why track and monitor, right? Things go wrong, right? Here's an example of a project where they had an economizer put in a boiler, and when that curve on the right, which is a QSUM curve, when it's horizontal, they're holding the line. That's the baseline. They put the economizer in, great. They turn the whole thing downwards, improved performance, better, or lower consumption. And then all of a sudden they serviced it and forgot to put it back in service, meaning open or close the valves. The whole thing went sideways, literally back to the baseline, but then when they fixed it, it started to go down again. So the QSUM is your savings trajectory. It's a way to keep an eye on exactly what's happening. I'm not going to go into more details. Amir will take care of that. For those that are IPMVP folks or M&V folks, RETScreen has the tools to make sure you do the statistical part right? That's all I'm going to say here. There's the detailed statistical screen. There are also things called non-routine adjustments. Used to be used sparingly and properly, but there is a guideline for non-routine events and non-routine adjustments. RETScreen covers or supports a lot of the methods in the EVO specification for non-routine adjustments. So great little tool from that point of view. What's behind what Amir is going to talk about in a few minutes is he's going to start with energy and driver data. He's going to assemble it into a linear regression or maybe a nonlinear one with multiple variables, maybe not just one variable. I've just got a one variable regression pictured here. And then from there, we're going to create a QSUM chart. The QSUM chart is the cumulative sum of the difference between what the regression predicts for the baseline and what actually occurred. Then depending on whether it goes up, which is more, horizontal, which is less, or down, horizontal, which is holding the line, or down, which is less, then we can construct the so-called M&V chart within the whole protocol of M&V, which shows us the savings in green. I'm going to let Amir dig into that more. Yeah, somebody once said that the QSUM chart, and RETScreen supports this wonderfully, is an indisputable evidence of the results of projects. You know, when a financial person who doesn't know technical things makes that kind of statement and then gives you another $300,000, real story here, that is, I think, a reason to use such a tool. And you can use it both on electricity, natural gas, or anything you can track in RETScreen. So up is more, down is less, flat is holding the line, your trajectory of consumption and performance. You can use, again, you can do your reporting for M&V, measurement verification, using a custom dashboard or a bulletin as you wish. I think I'm out of time, so I'm not going to do the demo here today. But I'd be happy if people wanted to. I always put out the offer. If people want to send me an email, I'd be happy to answer their questions, show them how to do particular things. So the last thing I'm going to finish with is, why use RETScreen from my point of view? Is it simplifies your life. It does. It really, I mean, once you start to use the tool, I know people will say it's a complex tool, but it can simplify your life, but it can't teach you how to spell. That should be re-roofing. That's my bad. Standardization, right? The databases that are in it allow you to standardize things, do things. I have clients that request other providers to give them their projects analyzed in RETScreen to standardize the approach so they can compare one to the other. Persuasion. The graphics, as you said, Scott, absolutely important, whether it be technical things or financial things that can be done. And ultimately, what I mentioned before, the interoperability of the tool, being able to connect to other things. You can connect to real-time metered data. You can connect to ESPM, or, the list of things you can connect to with RETScreen grows as each day goes by. My house is monitored by a little residential monitor. It's called Hydro Energy Monitor. I can pull data from the service entrance to my house, which comes in on a second-by-second basis and I can do my analysis in RETScreen. So at all levels, this thing works. It just works. So thank you for your time. Yeah, go ahead, Scott.
Sorry, Stephen, I just, you made some excellent points there, and I didn't want to gloss over one of them. We do have a poll coming up where we're asking, what is going to be of interest to you going forward, if there's another area that we should talk about. So if you can respond to that poll when it comes up, that would be great. But as Stephen mentioned, there's such a range of potential opportunities with what we can do with this that we just can't cover it all in a half an hour. But you did a great job, Stephen, in opening up our eyes on what's there. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. Amir, show us the money in M&V. So Carlos says, can RETScreen connect to APIs for independent variables? Yes, it can. Like there's SQL databases, there's a number of different APIs you can connect to. If you've got data in a SQL database somewhere, you could probably connect to it. And even if it's not within the standard connection set, you have the ability, if you reach out to RETScreen, they'll often help you to create a connector, a custom connector for your purposes. So they're keen on building those connections and they work very well. We've used them quite a bit. Over to you, Amir.
Perfect. Thank you, Stephen and Scott. Hello, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be part of this presentation. Before getting into my part, I think we have a third poll here. So if you want to go over it, yeah, thank you.
I think this is an important underlying question. How important is M&V? As I started off by saying that it's rather a niche topic, which we'd like to change. I think every project of any significance should include a measurement of verification, particularly by a third party, so that the people that are making the decisions around what our next steps actually see the value from it. But very interested in what you have to say. So looking forward to seeing the results of this poll.
Question here says 1 to 10. It's actually 1 to 6. And it didn't actually put the description, but 6 is high, 1 is low, or maybe it's a pain to us. I got a good number here, so I'll just display the results. For most people, it's a very valuable thing, right? Moderately or very valuable. So I think that's a very positive response, Scott, about the value of doing M&V.
Yeah, no, I'm surprised. I was expecting it to be more 3 and 4, so I'm glad to see it's 5 and 6. I think hats off to Denis and Ivo for getting that message out on the value of it, and again, how practical it is. So great to see. Thank you.
There you go.
Perfect. Just moving on who I am. We have prepared a lot of good examples of what we are really seeing in the real world in terms of the projects, how MMV RETScreen feature is helping us on an ongoing basis to create aha moment for us. And we would like to share that later on. But before getting into it, I'd like to touch on basic definition of why we are here and why we are talking about RETScreen MMV. Energy efficiency cannot be directly measured. It is absence of energy, and what we can do is measuring the absence of energy. Measurement and verification plan is a process that would allow us to measure the savings. But is that enough to measure the savings? If we establish a baseline as per our plan and start measuring the savings, is that enough? Our short answer is no. And we believe in that we have to adhere to certain standards to make sure that what we are doing, the practice we are doing, is going to be internationally aligned with the line of certain standards quality. And there are lots of tools out there that they do MMV for you, but they might not be IPMVP adherent. And what we encourage everyone to think about is if we are using certain tools for certain projects that might be viable, they might not be credible for all times. And thanks to EVO, Efficiency Evaluation Organization, we have that principle in our business, MMV community. We can stick to these principles and make sure that what we are doing under MMV in order to quantify these savings is internationally accepted and is based on 6 principles that EVO published in their guideline. And if we do so, then whatever we do in order to quantify the savings on a specific project for a building or a plant or factory, it can be verified with another professional somewhere else in the world, and that can be acceptable. In the nutshell, MMV is about how we do things, and IPMVP is about how we think and sets the quality and standard. And now that I touched on the MMV plan, I'd like to get into, okay, where RETScreen MMV sits. On one hand, we have IPMVP protocol that we have to adhere and it sets the quality standard. On the other hand, we have to do MMV plan in that we are explaining how we are going to quantify the savings. We believe that RETScreen MMV feature is a practical link in order to connect these two and provides analytical model in order to establish a baseline and start quantifying the savings and reporting and verifying the savings in a systematic way. So that's why I think this is kind of completing the whole basket of tools by having MMV with the RETScreen. But is that the last step? In our experience, it's proven to be not. We have another piece in order to draw the whole picture, and that is participants and stakeholders' involvement. So this is where we believe that we have to stay in touch with EVO whenever they publish new guidelines and update the IPMVP. We have to stay current and get that updated. On the other hand, we have to stay current with RETScreen team with the development they are making on the software. They were very fast in responding to the changes happening in our community after pandemic with adopting non-routine event and non-routine adjustments. So we take this, but we also have to present it and work with the buildings that we are building with, because MMV cannot be built in silo. That cannot be built in vacuum. We have to interact with the people and stakeholders to make sure that whatever we are doing on MMV is actually communicating back from real world situation, operational changes. And the examples that we prepared later on is going to show you MMV itself might not be sufficient. We have to have that kind of interactions. We prepared, when we look at our past experience, how that RETScreen created aha moment for us. We categorized 8 items, but there are not exclusive number of things that we can do with RMMV. There are a bunch of different things that people can do with RETScreen. But basically the list is here. I'm going to go through one by one and explain how we dealt with the situation by having the advantage of having MMV and utilizing RETScreen MMV feature. The first situation was we were working with a building that we had a baseline for natural gas consumption. And all of a sudden in the shoulder season in October, we started seeing increase in natural gas consumption. That raised a flag. So this is a kind of first step for identifying an issue. And we took this matter to the operation. Is there anything changing in your building? And they look at the recorded log and the BAS, and they said, we are performing as the way that we do it every year when we turn on the boilers. And we took the matter to the local utility and saying them, oh, we have a bump that we can understand in our QSUM, and we share with them honest, and we share the data. And it turned out that the utility company made a mistake in their billing. So they corrected the bill, and our client got $17,000 back. And thanks to having QSUM and monitoring and talking with the operation team on a monthly basis.
So Amir, that was a great example of a practical situation that happened. But it was to tie it into measurement and verification. If we hadn't been doing the measurement and verification with the QSUM using RETScreen, that would have been overlooked. So, and again, credit to you to find it and follow through with it, not just accept what didn't make sense. So, a great example.
This is exactly it. And also talking with the operation team, we have another example when something happened in the past, but no one can remember what happened. Um, Thank you, Scott. So here we have a more complex situation in that we had a baseline with the commercial building based on the 2017 data, and we started doing some changes in the building, and they were getting gas savings every year. As Steven mentioned, whenever we have line going downward, it means that we are saving. So in 2021, you can see we had good savings, and then winter of 2022 came along, and instead of seeing the savings, or the saving was not sustained, and instead we are having increase in natural gas consumption. So when I started talking with the operation team, the first item came up was, yeah, we run our humidifier to respond our tenant requests because they want higher relative humidity in winter. We were not satisfied with that result. We started digging deep and seeing, okay, if humidifier is working, then we can expect certain amount of gas use increase, but that is not aligning what we can see on our QSUM. So when we dug deeper, we found that there is a passing valve that also came at the same time and increasing our natural gas consumption. So that was very good to have QSUM on a monthly basis to monitor the building performance and report back, yeah, there is something going on. And once they understood the situation and the problem, they started budgeting it and they made the fix the issue just the next summer. And next winter came along, even though they still provided high level of relative humidity, but the saving can be realized. Even though the slope of a line, which is very important in our analysis, is slightly degraded in 2023 versus 2021, which is indication of reason using humidifier, but that tells us that humidifier, that everyone probably, if they wouldn't have MMV, would stay under the impression that, oh yeah, we are using relative humidity and that's okay. It is not okay. And again, everything is started with RETScreen, MMV, and QSUM analysis. So they addressed the issue and there was 90,000 cubic meter of gas savings, equivalent to $30,000. This is another example where we started our service. It's called EMAP, where we establish MMV and we talk with the operation team and we meet with them on a monthly basis. We started in 2023, but when we wanted to look at their historical consumption, we established a baseline in typically commercial building we do from 2019 to see how they responded to pandemic in 2020 and how they have been performing. We realized that just before 6 months before when we started, there was a significant change in the slope of line that is an indication of having higher savings. So when we started talking with operation, then they said, yeah, we started looking at the schedule and started to trim the schedule back and make it more aligned with the tenants' hours of operation. And this is what we did. And credit to operation team, the effort that they made can go unnoticed because no one can really see what they have achieved. But thanks to having MMV, what they did in the past is now quantified. And in this case, they were achieving $79,000 thanks to their initiative. So this conversation, when operations effort sometimes get unnoticed, was reported to higher level management, and now there is a better awareness how impactful operation team are in terms of making changes in the building. And again, everything is started with having QSUM and looking at it.
Mayor, if I can jump in here, can you
Sure.
go back to one, please? I talked about feeding the fire, how to maintain that momentum, and keeping people engaged and involved. And again, the work that you do in making it very clear that there is a change in what's happening, whether it's good or bad. You've shown both, but I think being able to have that communication and that sharing the story, telling the story on what's happening through measurement and verification is what inspires, in this case, operations to actually take control and take action to make improvements. So great illustration here. But again, I want to point out that it's not just giving the numbers, it's telling the story. And I think that's something that in energy management, and measurement verification, we sometimes forget that we think if we give a table of numbers, people get it. A lot of times, especially we found with property management, general managers are so busy with all the things that they have to deal with, we can't assume that a list of numbers will tell the story. But being able to do it visually like this has really been provided a lot of credibility and keeping that fire going by adding more and more the opportunities. So thanks for making it so clear. And the way you add in your arrows to show direction, etc., really helps tell that story. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Yeah. So moving on. So again, we were trying to cover different things with our MMV feature in RETScreen. In this particular case, we have two different things that our QSUM is helping us to identify and later on quantify the changes happen in the building. In this particular case, we were working with the building and they were very proactive in responding to different projects and taking the initiatives to implement changes. Thanks to having this QSUM, things are a bit distorted after pandemic, but in the first bit, when we were at 4 part, like the first bit, when we have this highlighted, the dash green item, this where we achieve 4.5% savings. When we were making the changes with the operation team on a monthly basis, we would find that the slope of a line in QSUM would change. And as Scott pointed, it was very important to report back to them and make sure that everyone is on the same page. These changes are resulting into either positive or negative change in QSUM direction. Some stuff like EV charger are sometimes causing increase. And if we know that the EV chargers are sub-meter, we can start subtracting the consumption. This is where non-routine event and non-routine adjustment comes in. And the great example for it that is called Black Swan was COVID. When COVID hit, everything was distorted because now we are dealing with the buildings that were having 10, 20% occupancy and even less than that. And energy efficiency, as you can see, was going in a certain trend that is highlighted, is in the blue line, could have gone in the dash red line. But as a result of COVID, now we all of a sudden, the occupancy drops. So now what we are having in our QSUM is the summation of energy efficiency and COVID impact. And thanks to both EVO and RETScreen, we were able to do non-routine event and non-routine adjustment to take into account just that small portion that is a result of lower occupancy and subtract it from the total savings. So this is another example for a residential building. We start with this building for existing building commissioning, and doesn't matter what we do with the building. Typically, when we start working with either energy audit, ABCX, or EMAP, the first thing we do is creating a baseline to see how building has been performing historically. In this particular case, we created a baseline in 2019 and we started looking at the gas consumption. R score of 0.98, which tells us that it is responding to weather outside with small seasonal bias. And we found that one bill was estimated at the time that causes this change or blip in the consumption. But what we found interesting was there was a point when we started seeing increase in QSUM. When we started investigating what happened at that time, it turned out that they had a heating plan with non-condensing boilers at efficiency of 85%, and they replaced one of the boiler with a condensing boiler at 95%. So they made investments, and they also received incentives from local utilities, but actually they were not getting any benefit from the incentives. Actually, what happened, or the investments, what happened was their gas consumption started to increase to the amount of 20,000 cubic meter per year. And that was very aha moment for everyone, telling that, okay, the investment itself is not enough. You have to make sure that whatever you're investing on is going to be properly commissioned and is going to work along with what you already have. So they are taking action in order to install a new controller because the new controller was not capable of controlling it. So in this particular case, the capital project was basically complete, but there was no MMV to track it. And doing it retroactively still is good because now it's just 1 year they missed that opportunity, but they can go back and address the issues.
That's why I tell people to run their QSUNs monthly, just literally, or weekly, right? Just every month look at it, and if it turns upwards, even though there's lots of noise in your baseline there, you know when it's turned upwards. The QSUN has this neat ability to detect changes that are not noise. So good point.
Exactly. And that has to be communicated with people to know, okay, what direction we are going and what is the root cause for these changes. The last example.
Sorry, if I can just jump in again, because I think it's a really good point when we're talking with operations and talking to people. People don't remember what happened 3 months ago. Basically, they don't remember what happened, a month ago. So having that regular communication and getting them comfortable with looking at the data is, again, a way that we can sustain interest. And I always talk about what we're doing is not a destination. Stephen's been in business and doing this for 40 years.
Long journey.
It is. Yeah. It's a journey, but it's a journey that's meaningful and worthwhile when we see results.
Yeah.
And I think that's, go ahead.
Having said that, Scott, about people not remembering things, there is an event log in RETScreen. So in addition to all the numbers you can record for data, you can record a diary, you can import it from an Excel or a Word file, creates events over time. Those can be overlaid on your graphs automatically. So there is a way to prompt that memory of that journey. Sorry.
No, it's good. Okay, sorry to interrupt, Amir. You're doing great.
Thank you, Scott and Stephen. The last example I would like to touch on is everything we talked so far is about gas and electricity, but RETScreen and MMV is not limited to energy. We can do MMV for water if we have independent variable that water consumption or whatever source of utility can regress to against. And this is where we can create a measurement and verification plan. In this particular case, we are dealing with a building that uses steam for heating. And in order to quench the condensate of the steam going into drain, they have to use city water in order to quench it. So meaning that when outside temperature is colder, they use more cold water or city water in order to quench the condensate. And in summertime, they use water for irrigation and cooling tower. What we are dealing with here is a bar graph. Bar graph is showing us the red bar is 2025 and blue is 2024. In the first glance, we found out, okay, we are doing much better in 2025 versus 2024, except one incident in June. That's the only thing we can understand from the bar graph. But when we dig deeper and we establish a baseline based on 2024, then we see what kind of changes are taking place. And that prompts the conversation to talk with the operation team. What is happening in your site? Because now we have changes in the slope of our QSUM happening every 2 or 3 months. And then when we investigate further, it turns out there are different things happening in the building. They had thermostatic quenching valve that was passing, and they were identified in 2 months or 3 months, 2 months apart, and they address it. That's why the slope of the QSUM is changing. Or in the first case, after February, we started seeing a major decrease in their steam consumption, and turned out that as part of their maintenance plan, they replaced the steam valve. In this particular case, 2 other initiatives were kind of low cost, but the first one was capital cost. So here we can compare these different initiatives by just putting together the slope of the line or the tangent line here together to see how each activity savings is and how much that is contributing into the total savings. And the building is getting phenomenal amount of savings with over 5K monthly. So that can be also used toward the future projects. If you are doing something and quantifying it, then can pave the way for future investment because people and decision makers can see the result from it. So these are all pieces together. I hope that I stick to the time I have.
I think we're good. I think we're
Okay,
good. We
great.
got a poll to go there, right? So I think, Scott, we want to understand what else they want to learn, right?
Yeah, I think that would be good. A great opportunity, especially with such an international presence.
So I'm going to launch this poll, and you will see on it, there's a couple of questions here. One is you can just pick one of the, or a multiple choice of what we have here, but if you have some specific things, you can actually fill in the blank too, right? So you can type in some other things that are sort of free form.
Yeah. We also are open to have a conversation. If you, the question is, will the recording of the webinar be available? The answer is yes. And if you go through the webinar or go through the presentation and come up with more questions, Stephen's contact information and Energy Networks contact information is available, and happy to respond to those questions. But again, I just want to reiterate how open RETScreen has been in wanting to develop their software, and open to suggestions and critique on what can make improvements. Stephen, you've got a history with RETScreen that goes back how many years?
Oh, probably 20 or more.
Yeah. So it's not the flavor of the day. RETScreen has been around for decades, and it's sincerely wanting to help our industry and help you as an individual move forward. And we need these tools. I've always said energy efficiency is a profession like any other profession, and it should be respected that way. So really looking forward to what's of interest to you, and either on the top three, or if you've got something specific, please feel free to share that as well.
Yeah, a number of people have put in some extra ones here. I won't display this. It's probably less useful for the group, but I'm just going to let it sit there. Maybe, Scott, if you want to go to your next slide, folks can sort of move it off to one side. I'm just going to leave it up there for people to continue to fill it in.
Sure. So this is a call to action. You know, what are the learning outcomes? What are the questions? What are next steps? The one thing I do want to compliment everyone on that's participated in this workshop. We started with 124. Well, we started with 260 people registered who will get the presentation. We started with about 124 people that have signed on, and we're with 121 now. So, you know, thank you for participating and sharing in this exchange. We are looking to get your response as well. We're hoping that we've set the stage for a more proactive as opposed to a reactive response. We find, especially in the commercial world, we respond to activities, but in the new dimensions of energy management and needing new supply, et cetera, we have to be a lot more proactive. And that means getting people engaged. And I think we can do that by showing them real results, give them confidence that their energy plan is working, that they're getting numbers. And by sharing that, not just internally, but also externally. Case studies are a great way of doing that. I think Amir demonstrated that quite effectively. Stephen showed the tools that are available to help make that happen. So we're really hoping that you engage with your operations team to show what the numbers are and share those numbers with others. We know that we have the tools. Unfortunately, greenwashing, if you go back once, Amir, sorry. Unfortunately, greenwashing has entered into our language, fake news, et cetera. So we want to dispel that with coming out with real opportunities. Stephen, I don't know how many projects you've worked on in your career, but the numbers are real. The kWh, the cubic meters, the water savings, they are real numbers that can help us move forward in a positive way. So we hope we leave that with you and you buy into it. Next slide. So with RETScreen top 5, I think there's probably top 20, but we just threw these ones in here. You know, how credibility and the structure is there to defend your savings. The importance of working with EVO, IPMVP. I think I see too many measurement and verification plans they don't have the substance to withstand that international scrutiny. Managing multiple buildings, Stephen talked about that, to a high standard, incredible M&V process. It really has helped reduce the focus on getting data and allows us to be a lot more effective and without losing accuracy. And we're not just about incentives. We're all about using RETScreen to help the building improve in terms of long-term performance. Thanks, Amir. So we've been getting questions. Your response has been great. Details are available. That's my email. Stephen's email is from No Energy. Amir is always happy to answer questions. I want to thank you. This is the webinar evaluation. We always like your feedback on how we can do a better job. We've done several several webinars for RETScreen, and we've got several coming up for the ISO on some other topics. So your feedback is important for us, and if you wouldn't take a few minutes, that would be great. Amir, do you want to just move on? I've got 2 minutes left.
And thanks for all the kind words that are coming in the chat there. Really appreciate that.
Yeah, it's perfect. So all participants will receive the RETScreen. Just let us know. Carry on, Amir. I got one final statement to make. This is our contact information. If you want more information, you're welcome to join our newsletter. But really the important thing for today, if you can see my t-shirt, is go Jays go. We want to make sure that we cheer on both teams. I don't know who you're cheering for, but obviously you know who I'm cheering for. This has been an exciting series, and we're hoping to see the Jays take the World Series. Last time was 1993. So if you're not a baseball fan, you might want to join in.
And I'll figure out how to use the QSUM on baseball scores one of these days.
So I don't see any other questions for you, David, Stephen?
No, I think we're good. There, a lot of people have added not just questions, but also information in. So thank you for those that were putting it in. I haven't used ChatGPT to do a one-page proposal yet, Rohit, but maybe I'll have a crack at that. And but I'll also be talking to RETScreen. So thank you for the evaluations that are coming in. I think we got about 60% of people responded there so far, Scott. So no, I think we're all good. This has been great. I really appreciate all the interaction. It's one thing to do a webinar. It's another thing to do it when we get in the questions and the comments and having, you know, Scott and Amir also there too, not talking to just a blank screen. I love it. Thank you.
It feeds our fire.
It does. And you can tell I have lots of that. Yeah, I've been doing
thanks,
it for,
everybody.
Yeah.
On behalf of Energy at Work and Amir and myself, thank you very much for participating, and we look forward to keeping in touch. Thank you, Stephen, for all your work, and Adam for working behind the scenes for us. Marianne, Elizabeth, it does take a team to put this together. So thanks, everybody.